all tragedies can be turned into miracles. There can be many miracles that can come out of incredible loss and pain and suffering. And this pathway that I'm going to open up to you leads into that. It leads into you processing your emotional pain, learning how to reframe the story, and understanding yourself and your own strength and growth and developmental potential in a way that can help you create a better future and outcome for yourself and for those around you. There are really no words that can completely describe the catastrophic loss that you've experienced when you lose a child to a mass school shooting event. Sometimes when we go through such incredible shock and trauma and tragedy, the scariest thing in the world is to talk about it, because there's this fear of going back into the depth and the rawness that you experienced and have it literally overtake your life again. And I recognize that there is a lot of work that you have to try to achieve on your own after you've lost your child to such a terrible tragedy. My intention is to try to help you come to terms with the difficulty in a way that actually helps you heal and find closure and form a new way to use what has happened in a way that can help bring wholeness and inner peace to you in your life. None of us are prepared to bury our children before we're gone. None of us ever expect that that's going to happen to us. And many of us are left trying to figure out how to resume life when something traumatic like this happens. It doesn't help that we have a world that doesn't really understand what's happening and how to show up for that. People will give you sympathy, but they may not understand what you're going through and how over a lifetime you'll have to work through that and have a process in your inner world that will help you communicate with those traumas as they come up, deal with the triggers, with the anger, the rage, the hopelessness, the despair, the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, the panic attacks. Those are all things that sometimes we tend to feel ashamed of and hide if what had happened long ago, and people just look at you as if you're a failure because you haven't learned to get over it in the time frame that they think you should have. Of course, in the beginning, after something happens, there's lots of sympathy and there are lots of people there to help you feel supported in your emotional grief and your anger and your ability to seek justice. But oftentimes, as time goes on, we're left alone with those feelings and those thoughts, and we don't always have coping skills or know exactly where to put the inner conversation that's happening in our bodies, hearts, and minds. People in your life may try to befriend you and talk to you about things, but they may not necessarily always understand exactly what you're feeling. They may not know how to really help you in a specific, unique way that is really addressing the challenges that you have. As an empath, I have the unique gift of understanding things at a much more granular level and dynamic way. So I'm hoping to lend my abilities to you now in this time when you need someone most to understand your pain, your suffering, and the loss that you'll always feel from this terrible tragedy. My hope is that we can turn that feeling around for you to become something that is not only a loss, but also a strength, and now builds upon a resource that can be extremely valuable to you and to others around you. If you want to understand more about why this person could have done such a depraved act and caused so much harm, If you want to understand what happens inside of a child that creates such a devastating outcome, then please watch this video here that will show you how they're processing the world and what was going on inside of them to cause them to do such a terrible thing. If you're not strong enough for that level of conversation yet, it's okay. Don't worry about watching that video yet. Just let it be. But if you need that insight to bring closure and inner peace, then please take some time with it. The first thing I'd like to address is that there is no blame that would be healthy for you to take on in this moment. There is nothing that you should internalize that you did wrong because this wasn't your fault. This was not your fault. No matter what the situation was, it was not your fault. You did nothing to contribute to that. There was nothing that you could have done differently. The mind will oftentimes go down roads saying, if only I had done this, or if only I hadn't done that, or if only I just hadn't dropped them off of school that day. But the truth is that you were living your life in a normal way and a terrible tragedy happened. And that is just what happened. It is not valuable to blame yourself. It can only hurt you more if you do. So if you have a criticizer in your mind racing around trying to figure out what you could have done differently, then I want you to forgive yourself of that type of analyzing and say, that's not fair, that's not realistic, that's not what happened. What happened was a terrible tragedy and it was not avoidable. I want you to go ahead and allow yourself to know and feel that it wasn't your fault. And if there's anything inside of you that is going through that process, then it's okay to let that go. Tragedies like this aren't singular events. They oftentimes lead to multiple tragedies. They can cause a great strain on marriages and on relationships, mainly because there's a lot of pressure for survival already underway on people in society. And so when they have something terrible like this happen, it's very difficult for them to be able to take enough time off of work to heal and to grieve and to come together and find their strength in one another again. So oftentimes, if, let's just say, a married couple experiences this, in the beginning, they may come together and support one another during the trial phase or during the trauma phase, the acute stage where it just happened. But later, maybe a few years later, they'll start experiencing emotional and psychological voids, or they may end up feeling insecure to bring something to their partner for fear that their partner may not want to hear those things or may not be able to handle hearing those things. And so both parties often tend to protect the other side. I don't want to overwhelm this one, or they don't want to overwhelm the other one. And then they become left alone with their inner world and their inner suffering. And oftentimes it becomes a bit of an inner nightmare that can create torment and suffering in a way that you don't know how to get out of. And after a very long period of time passes, it can create shame because you will start judging yourself, thinking, well, I'm never going to be able to be like everyone else. I'm not going to be able to resume life. And so this inner shame, criticizing dialogue will come along where you may start judging yourself because you can't seem to get over it as fast as those around you would have hoped. So this is a normal part of what happens oftentimes after a tragedy or after a major event that's created shock and trauma in someone. is the rest of the world moves on and they hope you do too, and then after a certain time they kind of expect that you did. And if you weren't able to, it can really shut a person down internally and cause them to have other behaviors that they'll self-soothe through. And then what you'll see oftentimes in the male counterpart of a relationship is, as time passes, there will be a lot of anger inside of the man he doesn't necessarily know what to do with. That anger can really eat up his health and his ability to communicate with his partner and his family in a loving and nurturing way. And after time, the partner of that person who's ingesting all of this anger, doesn't know what to do with it, will become a little afraid of approaching this partner for fear of triggering their upset, which they're aware of already. And so over time, you'll see that marriages, or even just relationships that have gone through this, will become strained because the inability to continue processing the overwhelming experience, it just becomes too difficult. Your body gets very tired. Your mind gets very tired. A person is not meant to keep ingesting a loss and a trauma for years and years on end. That will really destroy you psychologically, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And sadly, when mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad don't know how to communicate around these tragedies, then what can happen is the other siblings or children of this child that was tragically murdered are left behind in their emotional needs as well. And in truth, all tragedies can be turned into miracles. There can be many miracles that can come out of incredible loss and pain and suffering. And this pathway that I'm going to open up to you leads into that. It leads into you processing your emotional pain, learning how to reframe the story, and understanding yourself and your own strength and growth and developmental potential in a way that can help you create a better future and outcome for yourself and for those around you. The truth is, the child that you have lost wants your happiness and inner peace so much. They need that from the other side. They need to feel and know that you are secure and safe, and that you're able to do the work that you came here to do, regardless of the trauma and the tragedy event. They want you to go beyond that place and time, and for you to really magnify the best that could have come from it and apply that to those who still need that love and support in the world. That's why we're here. We're here to learn and grow and become stronger and more wiser, more capable, resilient, loving, incredible human beings. And I want this for you too. Because I know that when you hurt and suffer, you shrink. You become unable to really see your greatest potential. When you've gone through an incredible tragedy, there are people that will come to hear the story. They will be dying to hear it. I call these the drive-by people. These types of people, they come into your life, they want to know all the gory details. It's like watching a terrible car crash for them. They like to get to see all the terrible, hear all the horrible things that happened, and then they just leave. They just evacuate because they just wanted the story. They wanted the details. They were addicted to the gore. And I know that's hard to hear. I'm sorry. I experienced it a lot after grief that I experienced with loss. And I've seen it a lot where there's a lot of people, they want the up close and personal gory details. But once they get it, they'll give you sympathy and then they move on and they disappear. And they're no more sincere about your pain and suffering at all. So just analyze their intentions before you decide to allow them to use you for entertainment purposes, because you're left feeling these chemicals in your body and these feelings in your body and everything that gets stirred up from the bottom, and all of these really difficult feelings that sit with you afterwards. It's important to begin to understand where that belongs and where it doesn't, so that people can't just keep messing with your wounds and robbing you of a better destiny ahead. I feel like as a parent in our society, we're oftentimes left alone to figure everything out and become everything to a child, feeling like they're going to have a long, long life and that you're going to die before they do, and everything's going to work out in that storybook way where there's a chapter for everything. But the truth is that life just is not that way all the time. People die very young, very early. There are tragedies all the time. And we rob ourselves of reality when we believe otherwise, when we think that every single person's going to live to be 100 and they're going to have a long, long life. Those are, of course, wonderful hopes and dreams, but that's just not the reality for a lot of people. There are many people who die young from tragedies, from medical problems, from all sorts of things. And so to have this expectation that our children are always going to be with us, it really is a false setup, because the truth is that anything can happen. There are a lot of circumstances that come up and prop up where lives are taken too early. And we have to know how to make peace with that. And to me, the only way to really make peace is to understand that it's the quality of living that you've had that matters. It's not so much the long lifetime that you've had. When you process trauma, sometimes it's very, very helpful for you to have a different story, a different framework that you're looking at things through. If you've lost a child and you're looking at the framework of, I should never outlive my child, well, that's true. That's always the hope. But in reality, it's not true. There are a lot of people that don't outlive their children. And it's almost a trap if you have that sort of expectation as some sort of strong, hard line. What we really should be focused on is the quality of our day-to-day experience, knowing that any day could be the last day that we have together. That's much more realistic way to live. And you have a better outcome at recovering when you have that ability to look at life that way, because you're prepared for those types of events. Not so much a mass shooting event, but the type of event where you realize that like now is the time for you to enjoy your lives together. You're not always going to have forever. When you process a tragedy, it's oftentimes about looking back and saying, what type of quality of experience do we have together? And that's what I would encourage you to do, is to say, look at all the wonderful things, look at all the unique things, look at all the things that brought you happiness and joy about that relationship, and really recognize what that value was to you. If you focus yourself on the beauty that that relationship brought you and what they taught you and how they helped you become a better person, you'll understand that the relationship gave you more than the loss. To begin recovering those memories, the positive memories about what the child was to you, in a sense of not so much like the child made me feel a way that I couldn't make myself feel. That'll just focus more on the loss. If you're going in that direction of like, oh, I felt this way when I was with my child and nobody else made me feel this way, well, then that's your work to try to make yourself feel that way from now on, because that child was showing you a pathway to a different type of experience with yourself that you can manicure. The processing tool can also show you how that person enriched your life and how you can then use that knowledge to enrich the lives of yourself and others around you. As a soul, you came here to experience the world. You came here to learn and grow and to be useful and helpful. And your process of development is not finished. Your time is not up. And even though you so much want to go and be with your child on the other side, your time is to be here. And so how do you find a way to go back into society and integrate as a person who's safe and can be whole and nurturing? There's a pathway forward. One of the best healing tools after you've been through an incredible tragedy is to find service in helping something larger than helps yourself only. And this is a tool that I've used throughout my whole life through incredible tragedy and survival. I have found that getting involved with something or someone that you love, maybe you love dogs and you decide, I'm going to go bathe dogs as a volunteer once a week at a dog shelter. I'm going to go hold cats and play with them at the ASPCA. I'm going to go help an elderly person that lives next to me. They look like they don't get out very much. Whatever it is that you feel in your heart called towards, find something that can help you away from the tragedy to move into a deeper, more participating way of reprogramming yourself towards the positive. This is very important in self-recovery because you will stay stunted in a trauma phase if you don't learn that it's okay to continue participating in life. That's what you're here to do. When I was going through incredible grief, one of the things that helped me was once I cried enough and grieved enough and got to the point where I realized I can't keep going on like this. I can't keep going on with suicidal ideation and all this heavy grief. And I was so hijacked that I realized at some point I have to find something bigger than myself to cling to. Because if I don't, I will never find the flavor for living again. It just wasn't coming because I was not the type of person who lived for myself. I lived for those that I loved and served and was attached to. And I'm sure you do too. So the thing that helped me was to say, this will be good for me. Even though I don't feel like I have the strength to give to someone else, I'm going to try because there might be something there. And there was so much there for me. And that's why I want to share this idea with you, because what I did was I went back into serving others, helping the homeless, helping animals, being a part of making the life of other people better in whatever capacity. Maybe it was bringing them food in a program like Meals on Wheels. I did hospice grief care, and I was a massage therapist. So I loved and healed and helped people back to wholeness in my time of grief. And even though it wasn't easy psychologically to consider that I could do something like those things, because I felt like I might cry at any moment or break down at any moment, I knew inside of myself how important it was to persevere, to push myself beyond the place that said, you can't do anymore. You're so exhausted. You're so tired. The depression was very intense. The panic attacks were very strong. What I realized was when I went and did these things and I went and served others and I went and helped, the more that I did that, the better I felt, because I began to understand, you know what? Human suffering is everywhere. People are suffering all over the place. And I can take my suffering and I can make the life of someone else better. And guess what that did? That made both of our suffering disappear in that time and space. completely. And then it became about communion and community. And then I started building upon that again, building a new way forward, a new positive way. And I didn't bring in the tragedies, and I didn't bring in the grief into those conversations. I didn't allow people to treat me like a victim. I allowed myself to serve and know people in a new capacity. I was tender and I was raw, meaning I'm sure they could see my fragility, but I let them instead see my humanity and showed up in a way that brought me back into my heart and into my strength over time. And this can happen for you too. A big part of healing is acceptance. Sometimes when something happens like this, it's so hard to accept. Acceptance is really difficult when you can't make sense of a crime that's happened. And so making sense of it, really understanding why this person might have done it, can bring peace, but it may not. So it's important that you own acceptance inside of yourself as a process. And don't make it a situation where the story or the outcome or the sentencing or judgment becomes your ability to accept the outcome, because that's just going to make life harder for you. If you're able to accept a situation that's happened, then you will begin to seed in your life the new promise that you have to create a new life, a new experience that can include the child who is now not with you in physical form, but is still with you in your heart and soul and spirit form. So when you find acceptance, what that looks like is saying, yes, this terrible thing has happened and I miss my child so much. And when you feel those feelings of grief, allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to grieve, allow yourself to self-soothe in a way that feels healthy to you. This will create so much good feelings and healing for you if you can move into that direction. Moving away from the hatred and the blame and the anger, moving away from needing that will help you to begin to allow things to let go. It's like, there's a big storm and then, everything gets calm again. You want to be moving into that calm phase of life, the phase that allows your heart and body to rest from the trauma. And if you feel grief and you feel tears, let them flow. You're not going to suffer from that. You're going to benefit and enrich yourself when you do that. Allow yourself to feel whatever feelings come up. Just don't allow yourself to stay stuck in those feelings, because that will create perpetual depression. Depression is a difficult thing to get over because it is like a hidden, invisible problem that you can't exactly name or know where it's coming from. And if you do find yourself in depression, these same coping skills that I'm telling you about will be a huge help into getting you out of depression. One of the reasons that people hold on to this type of trauma for far too long is because they're holding on to their anger, almost like a friend, like it's all they have. And there are some people who believe that if they don't hold on to the anger, they will be bad parents. Because shouldn't you be angry for the rest of your life that somebody did this to you? Shouldn't you want to just vilify them and blame them forever? Because inside they're internalizing that that's their role as a parent to advocate for their child that way. But the truth is that that doesn't really help fix anything. Anger has a way of affecting us when we speak, when we think. It affects our energy. It repels people from us. It brings out the toxic and the negative in other people. And it can trigger other people's wounds to hurt us even harder or worse. So anger is something that you really want to understand, because underneath anger is pain. Whenever you see anger, what you should learn to see is that someone has pain and they don't know how to cope. They are overwhelmed. Anger is a feeling of overwhelm, and it's a feeling of not knowing what to do, and it brings up anger because of that. So anger is something that is an indicator. It's not meant to be used as a living tool. It's an indicator that the pain needs to be acknowledged, accepted, and moved beyond. Be open to accepting the outcome of this experience, not because it was fair, just because it's what happened. It's time to accept it, and it's time to learn how to find inner peace. I know you can do this, and it does make you a much happier and more usable, meaningful person in the world. Every trauma and tragedy that happens to us has the ability to either destroy us or make us incredibly powerful, intelligent, and wise human beings. It's going to be up to you to choose which one is important to you and to learn how to carve out this pathway for yourself so that you can set yourself up for the best outcome, and for those around you who are watching you, who are looking to see how you will take on this challenge, how you will grow from it, how you will regain your life and find yourself, and what will come of this. Imagine if you take on the difficult thing and finding love in your heart again, and finding a way to integrate back into the most powerful, beautiful being you could be, how that will impact those around you. Do not be afraid of the pain that you feel. Find the courage to move beyond it, to know yourself regardless of it, and to give of yourself, heart, body, and soul in all ways. Feel compassion for yourself. Give yourself the time and space that you need, and then it will be time for you to practice life in the realm of living again, and to use the skill sets I've offered you to really recover and heal. The important thing to remember is to be love, because the world needs more of that. No matter how much we hurt and struggle, the choice is always ours as to how we participate in life, and it's the how that is the most important thing to focus on right now. How you're loving yourself, how you're showing up for your family members, how you're communicating, and how you're practicing life will make all the difference in the outcome. I hope that this information helps you, and if you need deeper insights, or you would like for me to help you process these types of things or help you in any way, please reach out to me on my website. I'm always here as an empath to help someone process and help bring love and healing back into the world. I truly love all beings, and I just hope to bring understanding, love, and harmony back into our incredible world that we have.